Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today's guest we have as a part of our series to communicate the success in engineering design services across the globe is an interesting personality. She's been in the business with Infosys for the last 8 years, women leader, and leading the technology function, a rare combination that we find in India. My pleasure to introduce Semra Barutcha, Vice President Engineering Services from Infosys on the call today to share with the audience the perspective of what does it take to build a successful digital engineering services organization. Welcome, Semra.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Semra, just to begin with, this industry, you've seen it for longer years, and in the last 3-4 years, the transformation has been very real, very real. The technology is interplaying with one another and competing perhaps with one another. Say, who is going to lead? Perhaps about 6 years back, they said IoT could be a game changer. Nobody is talking about IoT. People assume IoT is the way to do it. It's leveler. So in your opinion, what are the 3-4 good big change if you give a crystal ball view for the next 4-5 years? What kind of technologies are going to help us reshape this engineering industry? The reason I'm asking you, I'm sorry being the long question, entire systems are getting into personalized, intelligent system, connected, autonomous, mobility are the drivers. Can you take us through your experience, your vision, your thought process? How is this entire thing of connected and intelligent gets played with the newer technology that's coming in?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a loaded question, and it has many, many different answers for that, KSV. So and when we look at all the emerging technologies that you mentioned here, ultimately we're looking to see how do they unlock value from different verticals. And when I start looking at these technologies, and across the industries, I really look through 3 different lenses. One is, how are we going to be driving a cost out from the enterprises? And when you look at it, that has been the most first adopting approach that most of the organizations have been taking, especially the heavy industries, right? How do I leverage these emerging technologies? Because I need to optimize my operational environment. I need to be able to automate my operational environment, and then really driving that predictability in the operational environment. And a classic example of that is really the Industry 4.0 adoption that we're seeing, and really following the Industry 4.0 maturity model by collecting the data, getting that visibility so that we can understand it, and then start predicting and automating the environment. The second lens that I look with the enterprises is, how do I differentiate in the marketplace? How do I actually add value to my customers? Now, that landscape is changing very significantly. Now, with the consumer, it's about, the customer experience is the new battleground, right? That we have to deal with. So it's no longer about how am I producing the best product with the highest quality. It's just not enough. Right? So from that respect, customers are saying, and according to a study I was reading from KPMG that is talking about, the loyalty of consumers, globally only 8% of consumers claim that they have any brand loyalty. And in fact, most of them also claim that in the last 5 years, they're willing to look at new brands. So all enterprises, especially where they're consumer-centric enterprises, they're battling with how do I attract and retain the customers. And this is where the technology is about collecting the data and analyzing the data so that we can give the consumer the experience-based offering. And in this instance, what it means, it has to be personalized. For me to understand if it's personalized, I need to understand what their preferences are. So how do I collect that data? It has to be purposeful. It's no longer about it's just what is the purpose it's going to serve, even for the planet, right? And then it has to be secure. So you're dealing with a lot of that, and digital technologies, really, digital engineering is enabling that. And last but not least, sustainability and the circular economy, right? This, especially in the last 18 months, is a topic that is become, top of discussions in every customer engagement that I'm having. And there is a significant pressure for the enterprises to achieve sustainability within the business. So when you look at it, data and technology, the sensors that we put, the data that we're collecting, the information that we're gathering is helping us first baseline. Because where do you start with sustainability? It's such a big, big, big topic that, and if you don't know where you are today, how do you even determine what your roadmap should be, right? And so I'll give you an example with Infosys. We installed sensors across all building consumption, the water, the energy, the chillers within all of our campuses, right? That helped us baseline everything. Because then we're collecting information, we had an understanding of where we are, and then we had a goal. How do we become carbon neutral, right? And in the last 12 years, we've been able to save, over 50% on a per capita energy consumption and over 64% in per water per capita water consumption. So they've been talking a lot about it, but now, especially with the way enterprises are approaching and the pressures we're getting, the opportunities are endless with how it can be adopted.
Fantastic, Semra, fantastic, very interesting. The other thing I want to check with you, linked to the previous answer, in the past, perhaps recent past, perhaps 5 years back, the engineering design conversation used to be largely with the CTO organization, right? With technology and software blurring, etc. Are you seeing the conversation moving in integrated IT technology CTO configuration or the digital technology configuration? If you can give us the guidance as to where do you think, the reason I'm asking this, just 5 years back, there was a controversy. Will the engineering design services will remain traditional mechanical engineering based, or would it shift to electronics and semiconductor, etc.? Now, suddenly there is a shortage of semiconductor in the global market. Every manufacturing is getting hit. So people are wondering, what is the relevance of electronics? What is the relevance of semiconductor? Are we going to see increasing electronics and semiconductor in the offerings from companies in the digital era? Or how are your customers, all of you are managing the transition from a traditional to digital? Is it easy, simpler? It'll be very good perspective to get from your Semra with your wide experience.
Yeah. It's a great question, and again, it's something that it's a common question that is being discussed, irrespective of what industry you are. And I'll tackle it from I guess from two angles, right? So I'll start first with the organizational structure, and I want to highlight something that when we look at all of these emerging technologies, be it IoT, right, be it AI and analytics and the whole automation, in many respects, that's the easiest to implement, whether we're building a greenfield, perfect, or moving from a brownfield, which is majority. We have mechanism, whether it's Industry 4.0 maturity model, whether we are moving towards more DevOps agile architecture, there is a method, right, to try to solve it and break it into pieces to implement it. But for this, organization must change, right? And if I look at the traditional organization, you had your CIO, you had your CTO, then you had your COO, then you had your business, and then you had your corporations and stuff like that. We are talking about traditional engineering and digital engineering convergence. That is only applicable if we can also be open to converge, right? Because the new digital way of running the enterprise, you have to have full visibility of your supply chain, to your production, to your design, to your engineering, to your consumers. Right? So the boundaries are blurring,
Exactly.
especially. And decisions that the CIOs, for example, only used to make, no longer are applicable when you have IT-OT convergence.
That's
both of them. And in fact, I've seen certain organizations, especially in the mining, where we said, we're just going to have one. We're merging business and CIO together. We will have one because it's not a handover anymore. It's actually an integrated solution that I must have. And for that, I have to understand what are my core business are in heavy industry. What is my control systems, my SCADA, like how am I operating that? How is that information coming into a centralized way that makes sense? And only engineers can make sense of that. And then how is it used by the business and the systems, IT systems, to make sense of it? Right? So you're having, and so that multi-skill needs to come. To your question on the edge, it's a very interesting, and the semiconductor. A lot of the emerging technologies are saying you have to process and make decisions at the edge. You want to be closer. That zero distance from whether the business that you're interacting with, can I respond to the customer quickly? Can I respond to that machine to machine very quickly?
That's right.
Can I, react to, a system on the transport logistics and whatever scenario? To take it back to a centralized point, to make a decision and send it back absolutely makes no sense. So what is really happening and why we're seeing such a shortage of demand, and by the way, this is across industry, is because we want to empower the edge. We want to drive as much analytics and decision processing as possible to at the edge, where it's the interaction with the customer, or its interactions with your operational environment, or it's in the interaction with the specific business, the network elements, for example, and hence the whole architecture that we're dealing with, the structure is significantly changing. It has to be agile, it has to make decisions, it has to be empowered. Right. And for that, you need new processing. You need to be able to analyze the data day and day, and you need to be able to bring some analytics and insights and automations to respond to it, rather than centralizing everything and trying to drive it. Right.
Interesting. But tell me something. This is the controversial questions. The two controversial questions. A, in the traditional world, from a buying organization, the CIO or a chief digital officer, CTO, etc., they were fairly aware of the outcomes or the output, etc., that's required in terms of improvements of productization from a product environment perspective. In a digital world, is that measurement metrics undergoing a change? What are the changes you feel should undergo? Because the old matrices cannot go. So question is, even companies like Infosys, other service providers from India, are they all adjusting them to the new metrics that is evolving? Are we ready? Like, for example, especially in the technology product that you represent, the market is moving to an outcome-based pricing, right? And not an FTE-based pricing as in the past. Is this transition getting increasingly difficult? The earlier model is to generate money. This current model makes you more accountable. Is there a gap to be addressed? This is one question. And second question, we call this the traditional powerhouse, Infosys, and the new digital natives are coming in. They just have an apps-based solution to quickly find a niche prodigy solution today to solve, boutique solution to put across. Where does that play within niche and boutique was a traditional play, is the interplay that's going to be? Sorry, my question is also being large because I'm getting excited with your answers.
Not a problem. So the first question, I think there is this, what I've seen at least across organization is that if digital say comes, as if the old world, the traditional world doesn't exist. It converges, but you can't do without it, right? You can absolutely not be able to really make decisions because the whole concepts are still there, right? What this really gives you is how can I respond much quicker because I now have end-to-end visibility, right? I still need my decision-making or intelligence process, but how can I make decisions a lot quicker? How can I speed up my offerings much quicker? Like if I come from an OEM world, our cycle was once a year.
That's right.
Today, I have to be able to release, every week, every day to some extent.
Right.
Like, if I talk to most of the telcos, I need to have a new product every day.
That's right.
Adapted, personalized, right? And so that digital journey, you're still using it because we all have to still make money, right?
Yeah, correct.
But it gives me the ability to make my decisions a lot quicker because I now get that end-to-end visibility at the tip of the finger in my hand, which previously I didn't. Yes, the CIO said, I understand my entire domain, but reality is it's so segmented and in pieces that we are introducing now, DevOps models to really stitch everything together in the process so they can get that end-to-end visibility. And as for the debate on whether it's the CIO, I'll give you a classic example, and it's a very engineering example, but it's applicable to every in the utilities or the heavy industry customer. It's not uncommon for me to have a conversation saying, we've got all these sensors, we've collected all that data, I've got the digital twin, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
How did you go about doing it? Well, we brought a data scientist. Did you bring the engineering people? Did you bring the process?
That's right.
Did you? No, the data scientists. And so there is, that misconception that all of that now has to go away because I have my data scientist and I've got my data that has been stored in this data lake that is structured in the best possible way.
That's right.
But it makes no sense, right? So that traditional knowledge and skills are absolutely critical and relevant in this, but this is really helping our enterprise make data-driven in real-time decisions so they can get it out. And the second part is there's less focus on specialization as a leader. You have to understand OT, IT, business. And so what in Infosys we call them is you have to be the enterprise leader, right? And so it's that small company mentality that you have to bring where you cannot afford to be just an IT person as a leader. You cannot just afford to be an OT person as a leader. You really have to acquire these skill sets because the convergence of that is forcing us as leaders to really build these new skills so that we can take them out to the market.
Fantastic. So refreshing. I remember when I was in mid-40s, the challenges which my enterprise then used to ask me, how do I get this guy to work with a millennial, dealing with millennials and stuff? Now you're talking about digital natives. It's going to be even more tougher because you're technologically savvy, one end, others need technologically starved, and the leadership makes a completely different. Completely agree with you. Building to what you said, I like this point of convergence that you talked about. I have three questions related to each other. One is around 41% of the total services of revenue that is going to come from engineering R&D is expected to be digital. And as I said, there's a huge ramp up scale that is required, because the good news is uh, customers are also learning, and you're also building a capacity. You can jointly together find an minimum optimal solutions, minimum basic solution, then discover the optimal solution. The not so good news is you're also naive to the concept. The customer also saying, hey, look, should I not be building this capacity and capability myself, right? Or why should I look for some external capacity because other person is also learning? So which model do you think with digital coming in, are you seeing the model of their dependence on collaborative approach is going to be, I suspect it's going to be collaborative. Your views on collaborative way of fixing things, collaborative way of working together, be very useful for the audience as they also go through this conversation.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And if I look at history, proprietary was the name of the game, right? I built something that is very proprietary. It's custom built. I need to sweat it. I'm not going to share really anything on it. And by the way, only here it needs to be done. When we look at the whole digital level of adoption and that end-to-end visibility, which we continue to refer to, and you actually said it, we have to be very nimble. We need to be very fast. We need to be able to change, right? And for that, proprietary or closed does not work, right? So that's number one. Number two, the actual solution is no longer about, I have a product, I'm going to install it here. I'm going to integrate it northbound so it's visible by the IT systems, and south if there is a south down, so that I connect to other devices, right? It's a combination of IT sensor, hypervisor, so that I'll be able to hyperscaler, so I'll be able to collect and get the analytics of it. Telecom, so they can provide me the connectivity. By the way, the use case then we have to build for it, that needs to be applicable for the end consumer. I need to understand the end consumer. I need to understand the technology. And then there is this whole shift towards open. Open networks, open environment.
Correct.
So you can't be proprietary when you're open. You can't focus on your IP, because your IP is as good as for 24 hours in some instances. Or it may be like, okay, I'll give you a year for an IP, right? And it can be replicated. So you have to continuously innovate. And to be able to do that continuous innovation, continuous thinking, and then openness for change, you have to do it in an ecosystem of partners. And look at a lot of the, gig forums that we're seeing, and the amount of innovation that is coming out of from, the gig workers and the forums that are solve a problem. And you know what, nobody's saying, I'm not going to share my information because that's my IP. Actually, it's all open free, because now there is a realization, it's not that IP that differentiates you. It's really how you collaborate and what are you coming out, and the continuous of it, right?
That's right.
But one idea is not going to make that continuous change of it. And so actually it's really exciting, because especially like previously, like you had collaboration, but especially now with the collaboration, we have the online collaboration happening. And so it's the bigger forum of people that are coming together now to co-innovate together. And it's like, how do I create really fast? How do I really determine really fast? Is it going to work? It's not going to work. Let's move to the next idea. And so it's exciting the mind.
Good. That brings. For example, our own estimate is before COVID, the whole engineering R&D business globally was estimated to be about 1.2, 1.3 trillion. The COVID has accelerated the demand. Our estimate is by 2030, this market is likely to be about 2 trillion US dollars business opportunities is existing. And one of the key elements, this is, of course, lots to be outsourced yet, The outsourcing is still a small percentage, and many countries are doing very well. The key point now is the kind of talent pool that is required is exactly what you said, Semra. Beyond technology, beyond digital, the problem solving, critical thinking, etc. If you have to give, we at NASSCOM, we at Government of India are trying to build India as a digital powerhouse destination. If you had to give an outside-in view as to what could be the top two things we're doing, should be doing, one is the changing the curriculum we are working with, refresher training program, internship program, apprenticeship program, core technology looking at it. If there is one or two you would suggest would be very helpful as we structure our thoughts to be the leader in the digital engineering space also.
Look, so we have to recognize that India is already the powerhouse of outsourcing. Yeah. I mean, you guys, we've done phenomenal, right? Yeah. And they're already leading, and it's already over 150 billion market.
That's right. Indian That's right.
Economy, right? Okay, but doesn't matter where you go at the moment. There is tremendous shortage of digital skills, right? And when we look at our, I guess, employee base, and I'm not particularly on any industry or anything like that, but, we kind of if I simplify it, we really have a divided workforce, right? We've got the Gen Xs that, they did not grow through that digital era, but they either have the skills because they went through university or they went the training, or they don't have the skills, right? And then you have the Gen Z. I actually call them the digital native employees. And I think we need to start recognizing that, these individuals primarily have grown up with internet, with smart something. So they have that basic knowledge of, the digital technologies itself. So, when we look at it from that respect, then it gives us the venue of how do I plan for them, right? And some of our traditional methods of education needs to be real
changing. That's right.
Yeah, right. And and I sometimes want to simplify it. I do like cars, and I want to simplify it. I don't need a degree to drive a car, but I need specialization if I want to be a Formula One driver.
Correct.
Or rally driver.
Correct.
I think we need to look at digital skills in that way, especially with the Gen Z community. They don't need a university degree because they're already digital native. So how do I enable them through the education system, but not say you must finish university, right? And India is a very large population. So there is a tremendous opportunity to really, drive that. You're leading in that area as well. But that does need to be worked with both academia. It has to be worked with government as well as with the industries as well.
Fantastic.
Until about 18 months ago, we would only hire, students from universities. Last year, we announced in the US that we are now hiring, employees from vocational studies.
Fantastic.
And training them. So the industries, the enterprises are now also have to contribute towards that training initiative as well. But we have to look at talent differently.
One last question. It's so exciting, so fascinating to hear this perspective. This is a slightly personalized question. Looking at you, you've been a very successful women leader in technology, right? In general, women leaders, and you reach top in the hierarchy in terms of good positioning, etc. So what would be your advice to your fellow women colleagues? What is it they should be doing should they, because you've retained your technical edge, the conversation also reflects your technical edge. What would be a top 3 guidance you'll go to the young women joining the workforce? They think if you get into management and go there, possibly your growth is faster. What does it take to be a woman in technology field at a senior level?
KSV, it's a good question. It's a question that I'm very passionate about, not because I'm a woman, but I've been involved in a lot of, I guess, forums and non-for-profits about how do we attract and retain women in this industry itself. And there's no one straight bullet for it, right? Okay. So one of the first thing that we have a conversation with in every forum is, how do we provide an inclusive environment that eliminates that unconscious bias, right? I when I'm in a room, I actually don't think gender. I think individual and what is that mindset of who's contributing to what. And I frequently get people saying, do you know you were the only woman in that room? I say, no, I didn't realize. But now that you told me that, okay, I now recognize that, right?
Fantastic.
But it has to be worked with the leadership and every single employee so that they make them comfortable. And a lot of people there are not making conscious decisions saying, I don't want a woman, right? There's a lot of unconscious bias, right, that is happening in environment that we need to work with. And that means that, when we form the forums or programs that focus on diversity and inclusion, we include everybody in there. It should not be just women in there, right?
That's right. It's a great point. Thank you so much.
But I do want to highlight one more point. The second point is, I think, and this is something us individually, we need to be able to be comfortable and confident enough to say, this is what I want. There should not be an expectation that it will just be handed to you. I think sometimes we forget to ask, I deserve this, right? So these are the 2 things that I really work with as part of the programs, KSB.
Fantastic. What a fascinating conversation. It was very good. As I said, you are true, open, sincere, honest. That is very good. This conversation was. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Semra Barutcha, Vice President for Engineering Service Infosys, sharing with a perspective what you heard in simple terms. The future is going to be collaborative innovation. Collaborative innovation is must plan for it. If you have not attained the skills to be a collaborative innovation, you possibly are not going to be successful in the immediate future that is going to come. She talked about, for being a successful women leader, unconscious bias towards anything, which is anything. Just look at the competency, don't look at gender, and you can make a success for yourself what is required. She also spoke about so eloquently the blurring lines between technology and digital, how the next digital millennials, if you're not aligned to, could be done, and what needs to be done. Together, we are in for a bright time. Or the $2 trillion, perhaps ER&D will reach from India currently, which is the 32 billion. We are garnering to get about 125 billion the next by 2030. I'm sure with leaders like Semra and others being available, we will achieve that goal sooner and quicker. Semra, look forward to seeing you in India soon. Get out of the constraint that you have within your country, in this city, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to visit India back. I have not been back since the pandemic, and I used to be there every 2 to 3 months. So I look forward to visiting.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.